Hi, welcome back, or welcome if you are new. Today we are going to read Masked Child by Uneasfeline, August 1st, 1940. Today was the day we moved from the city and out of the country. Mama was hoping it would be better for Papa's health, and I wasn't happy to move, not for my friends, and I will miss New York, but Papa hasn't gotten better, and he comes first. Besides, it's going to be good for him and for us. I get to see Mama's sister, Aunt Lucy. I haven't seen her for a very long time. The first time we met was when Mary was born, which was when I was just 5 years old. She didn't come when George was born. Neither George or Mary got to meet her, but Mama told us not to fret. Aunt Lucy is going to love us. I sure hope so, Papa told us that Aunt Lucy can make one hell of an apple pie. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to swear. Young ladies shouldn't swear, our nanny scolded Mary once. She said the H word, too. I think I'm going to miss our nanny. She was mean, but she's still kind. August 5th, 1940. It's been 4 days since we got here. Papa has been sitting up more, which made Mama very happy. On the first day here, Aunt Lucy had made us 2 apple pies. George and Mary love her, and she loves them. She laughed, saying that I needed to stop growing like a weed. We ate dinner, then had the pies for dessert. We sat around the wooden table. Mama and Aunt Lucy talked about the things they did as young girls. Papa was in bed resting. Mary said something funny, making us all laugh, but not George. He was looking out the kitchen window with an odd look on his face. He jumped out of his seat, then walked over to look out. Aunt Lucy asked him if he was feeling well. He pointed. There was a mask looking in. Both Mama and Aunt Lucy's faces went pale, like they just saw a ghost. Mama stood up and pulled George away from the window. Aunt Lucy stood up too, and then she took out a clean plate, then put a piece of pie on it. She walked to the front door. She looked back at Mama. Her eyes had fear in them. She opened the door, looking side to side before putting the plate down on the steps. She quickly closed the door, locking it. That night, Mama told us before going to bed, if we heard something outside our window, don't look or open it. Just go back to sleep. August 17th, 1940. Mama and Aunt Lucy has been acting odd for the last few weeks. When the sun was setting, we had to be inside right away. One night, there was knocking on our window. Mary started to cry. I let her sleep in my bed. The night after, I awoke to see George sitting up in his bed looking out the window. At first, I thought it was strange because the room was lit up, but when I felt the warm breeze kissing my cheek slightly, looking towards the window, my heart fell. The window was wide open and curtains were blowing lightly into the room, but that's not what scared me. Someone stood outside the window staring right at me. They were wearing a white mask with a huge smile on it. The eyes were 2 V's, but upside down. Parts of the top were cracked. The curtains weren't the only thing blowing into our room. A dark cloth was blowing in as well. The person didn't say anything. They just stood there. I and George both stared at it, not making a sound. Mary, however, rolled over in her bed. She mumbled something about it being too cold. Soon she woke up and sat up. She too saw it, and unlike us, she let out a loud scream. Both Mama and Aunt Lucy ran as fast into the room. Mary was still screaming, and the thing in the window ran away. George started to cry. My mind was fuzzy, but soon I started to cry too. August 19th, 1940. Ever since that night we saw that person, George has been talking to something. At times I would watch him go to the trees that are at the line of the forest. He just stands there talking. Whenever Mama or Aunt Lucy saw him doing it, they would run towards him and pull him away from the forest. Tonight Papa was well enough to join us for dinner. It was nice. He was still weak, but he still smiled. He started to eat all, but George but George. Mama asked if he was okay, and when he looked at her, he asked her, "Who's Ella?" Aunt Lucy dropped her knife as her mouth opened slightly. It looked like tears were forming in her eyes. Sorry, my throat itches. Mama had a sick look, but she swallowed, trying to smile. She's your other aunt that died at childbirth. Mama looked at Aunt Lucy, who was looking down at her food that was getting cold. Nella told me his papa killed her after he was born, George yelled out. We all looked at him. Mama grabbed his arm, making him yelp. Don't you talk to that boy. Do you hear me? She scolded him, something she had never done before. George started to cry but nodded. August 31st, 1940. Things have gotten worse. Yesterday, Aunt Lucy asked Mary and me to go gather the chicken eggs, something we did every morning, but that morning we found all chickens dead. Even the mean rooster was dead. We screamed and ran back to the house. Mama and Aunt Lucy comforted us and was telling us a fox did it. But a fox couldn't have put their decapitated heads in the nest with their smashed eggs or nailed their bodies to the walls. Besides the killings of the chickens, the 2 billy goats Mama bought us went missing. The next day, it was around noon when one of Aunt Lucy's friends came by. He told her and Mama to keep us inside, but from our room. We would see and hear what was being said. We found the goats, but it wasn't pretty. Both had their throats cut open. Their hearts were missing and, well, with a few other organs. I'm telling you, it wasn't a normal predator attack. Just keep the kids safe. My stomach dropped, and it felt like I was going to be sick. Mary and George started to cry. Aunt Lucy never got chickens, and Mama didn't tell us about the goats, but we already knew. September 2nd, 1940. Papa's health has gotten worse to the point we had a doctor come. He couldn't understand what was wrong. I also noticed that Mama and Aunt Lucy had been looking very tired. September 3rd, 1940. I woke up to sounds of Mama screaming and crying, then the sounds of the front door being opened, then slammed. I looked out the window to see her running to the forest line. She started to scream at it. I opened the window to hear what she was saying. Mary and George woke up, but they heard it too. You little... Leave my family alone. Leave them alone. You took my little sister away. Now you took my husband. We all watched Aunt Lucy as she ran towards Mama, pulling her away from the forest. Mama was still screaming, now incoherent words. She kneeled down, picking up a rock to throw it into the trees. We all jumped when the same rock got thrown back, hitting Mama in the face. She turned, putting her hand on the place the rock had hit. Aunt Lucy quickly pulled Mama away as she cried. Papa had died in his sleep, and there was now a mark on Mama's cheek where the rock had hit her. September 10th, 1940. I don't want to be here anymore. I can't sleep, and when I do, I have horrible nightmares of that masked person standing over Papa as he sleeps. When they started to stab him over and over, I wake up every time crying, and the window in our room was open more even when we knew we had shut it before going to bed. Aunt Lucy put a cross in front of it, which helped, until one night the window itself shattered. George would have random cuts and marks on his body, and Mary was having nightmares too. Mama started packing her things and was begging Aunt Lucy to come with us back to the city. Thank goodness she agreed to come. January 1st, 1941. It has been so long since I have written in this journal, but I can't stop thinking about that night, the night he killed Mama and Aunt Lucy, the last night of us being at Aunt Lucy's home. Was when things changed mine and my siblings' lives. We sat at the table trying to eat dinner, trying to be happy. Mama and Aunt Lucy put up so many crosses and got holy water, but that wasn't enough to prepare us for what was going to happen that night. It all started with when George stopped eating and looked out the window. All the color in his face went away, so did Mama's and Aunt Lucy's. Mary started to whimper. My body was going cold. Someone was outside. It was the masked person again. They turned their head. The mask was mocking us with its evil smile. Mama stood up and told us to hide. Aunt Lucy opened her walk-in pantry. She shoved us in. She kneeled down as Mary was about to cry, so Aunt Lucy patted her hair and told her everything was going to be fine. We all screamed when someone started to slam into the front door. Aunt Lucy closed the door. We listened. All we heard was yelling, laughing. That wasn't from Mama or Aunt Lucy, slamming and banging, then nothing. Something hard hit the pantry's door, making us scream. Whatever hit it left a crack. A little slither of light was shining in, but was being blocked out a few times. I had to cover Mary and George's mouth to keep them from screaming and crying too loud. There was more yelling, but over it there was one I'll never forget, the sound still making me sick. It was a wet smashing sound. It first started out just being a plain, loud smashing, but it slowly turned into a wet sound. Everything got quiet again, dead quiet. The slither of light got blocked out, then we heard it. Someone was coming closer to the door. Mary grabbed me tightly, putting her head in my chest. George peed himself as he covered his eyes. When the knob slowly started to turn, I couldn't move. I felt my tears flow like a river. George screamed and cried more. Mary screamed on my chest as my heart was racing. There he stood. He was an older boy. He had dark green hair. His eyes, those eyes were yellow and looked cat-like. He smiled at me. His lips were sewn together, but he could still speak. "Ah, dear cousins, it's so good to see you." He smiled more at us. The arm he was using to hold the door open was cut all the way around, but was sewn like his lips. He was wearing a long blanket like a dress that covered his head like a hood. It was dark blue on the outside, but dark black on the inside. He wasn't wearing that mask, but he held it in his other hand. He was covered in blood. From behind him, I could see Mama laying on the ground. A pool of blood was around her head. I started to breathe heavily. He smashed her head repeatedly on the floor. That wet sound, I didn't see Aunt Lucy anywhere. The boy started to laugh lightly. Those old hags really thought holy water and crosses would keep me away. Ha, what fools. It just ticked me off more. Now, dear cousins, what to do with you? He asked, then grinned. His eyes shined with evil intent. I couldn't hold it anymore. I screamed and screamed. So did my siblings before he could touch us and give us the same faith as Papa and Mama and Aunt Lucy. Someone started to pray. The boy pulled away from us, glaring behind him. Aunt Lucy was standing up weakly. Her arm was bleeding as the bone was sticking out of her skin. Her stomach was bleeding too. She was praying. The boy growled at her and started to walk towards her. She threw holy water on him, making him yell out in pain. Smoke was coming off of him. "Run, kid," she screamed. The boy grabbed her throat and started to squeeze. I grabbed Mary and George, pulling them out of the pantry. I yelled at them to keep their eyes closed and to stay close to me and to keep running. The boy hissed like a snake. We were outside. "I'm sorry, but I'm crying." "Aunt Lucy," he threw her body out of the kitchen window. She landed right in front of us. Her dead, fishy eyes stared right through my soul. "Dear cousins, don't run. Come now, don't be rude," the boy cackled as he came out of the broken window. I have never run so fast in my entire life, but when I saw the church, I knew we were going to be safe, and we were, because when our feet stepped onto the ground of the church, the boy who was right on our trail stopped, not coming any closer. We ran to the doors, about to open them, but stopped because he started to chuckle, then called out, "That little shithole will keep you safe for now, but don't get comfortable. I'll get all of you one day." He started to laugh maniacally as the sun was coming up slowly. He disappeared. We were found by the preacher a few hours after. We told him everything, but he didn't believe us about our family being killed by a demon. He just told us it was a very sick man. How I wish that was true. My papa's mother and father are still alive, so we were sent to go live with them back in the city. I still have nightmares. George stopped speaking, and Mary wouldn't even eat or speak. She got very sick and almost died. There are even nights I swear someone is watching me from the window, but whenever I look, there's nothing there. It's just my mind playing tricks on me. I hope.